Hi, everyone, and welcome to Elevate Your Life on Dr. T TV. I'm Dr. T, and this is the place where emotionally sensitive people get the emotional tools that they need to succeed. With me today is a guest whose name is Justin Stenstrom, and I want to introduce you all by reading his bio here. So Justin is the founder of the entire Elite Man conglomerate, including Elite Man magazine, which is the #1 personal development website for men, the Elite Man podcast, the #1 men's self-help podcast in the world, and the rapidly growing and ingeniously innovative Elite Life Nutrition supplement line. Just a little more about Justin. He is a nationally acclaimed life coach, author, entrepreneur, and speaker. And he's had people on his show, the likes of Robert Greene and Grant Cardone and Dr. John Gray, Bass Rutten, Dr. Dale Bredesen, Kevin Harrington, and many others. You wouldn't know it now, but Justin was once anxious, insecure, depressed, and unhappy. And Justin's overcome many of life's greatest obstacles and loves nothing more than helping others do the same. And this is so much why I wanted to have you on the show, Justin. So welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Tracy. I appreciate it.
So Justin, we met years ago. We were interacting as you were really bringing Elite Man magazine to the forefront and really filling in a very important gap in the marketplace where, you know, men were very much in need of a specific, a leader and a place where they could get the info to become the most elite version of themselves and overcome challenges. And so tell us about, you know, your journey from where you were to creating that and how all that's going now.
So yeah, the journey has been incredibly long and at times really hard, but the whole journey for me really started as a personal journey of overcoming anxiety, depression, panic attacks multiple 3-4 times a week, suicidal depression at one point. It got really bad for me. And that lasted a few years. This is back like 17, 18-year-old time. And that was a really tough period of my life, but it was like through a combination of a number of things and getting into this whole personal development space and, you know, coming across guys like Eckhart Tolle and the Tony Robbins's of the world, those types of guys, and then just like diving into all their stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that didn't work that I tried, you know, in the beginning, but then I found like some really good guys like that just helped out a lot mentally. And then, you know, like NLP and hypnosis, and we can talk about, you know, specifics later on, but there was a number of like different modalities that I used to just like bring my mental health back up and sort of come to like a baseline of being happy again. But then after that point, it was like, I want more, and, you know, more and more kind of, I started getting this fire of like doing more with my life and getting a purpose and, you know, helping other people, because once you overcome something like that, it's like, what's the next thing? And it kind of opened up a lot of doors for me mentally and in my life of like where I am today. I would never be here today doing the stuff that you mentioned a moment ago if it weren't for the years of past struggle that I had. So all those things were like a blessing in disguise, and they, you know, opened up a lot of doorways to the place I'm at today and helping other people and kind of giving back. And that's been my journey over the past, say, 10 years or so, over 10 now, probably like 11, 12 years of just like being personally, like helping myself personally. Even when I first met you, it was still like a lot of growth and things like that I was learning. But like where I'm at today is light years from where I was, you know, 12 years ago when I first started everything.
Well, and this is something I really want my audience to get, and really the people that are tuning in to, and, you know, for our collaboration here, to truly recognize that, you know, wherever you are at a given moment, that there's a path for you, right? That there is a process that you can do, and there are people that are all over the internet and everywhere able to help you with so many important tools. And what I really love, though, Justin, about what you've done specifically is you've given this nice broad range of tools to men, and you cover such a variety of topics with Elite Man magazine and the podcast that are really important, because otherwise I feel like things get put into like, you have this anxiety problem, or you have a depression problem, or you have a procrastination problem. And the reality is you're having a challenge with typically with your emotions and the performance that's going on there. And when you make it so that it's not just about fixing your anxiety, but it's about becoming the most elite version of yourself, that's something that people can sink their teeth into. And I think that changes the outcomes for people. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. It's more than just a short-term struggle, or say an independent struggle of, like, say, anxiety, like you mentioned, or depression problems, or self-esteem problems, or dating problems, or confidence. Like, there's so many different areas of life where people struggle. And a lot of people, I think, fall into the idea that it's just an independent thing that's happening. But the truth is, it's all connected. Like, we're all, just like the body's all connected. You have diabetes, you have heart disease, you have cancer. It's like not just one problem in the body or randomly just came out for no reason. There was a reason that, toxins or whatever, a diet, etc., went into that for years. And it was a holistic problem in the body. And that's just the result of something that was out of balance for a number of years. And the same thing goes with confidence, anxiety, depression. There was an imbalance for a certain period of time, and that's the result of it. And when you can go back to the holistic approach of actually, like, healing yourself throughout, those problems go away. And then not only do they go away, but you become almost like a more fulfilled person. So the next thing that comes your way, it's like a lot easier to get over that. And, you gain a certain amount of confidence when you start to do these things.
Well, you're really speaking my language, because I feel like people end up suffering from a lack of emotional education in their upbringing. And we're not big yet as a culture in giving people, kids, from the beginning, an emotional foundation of how to have a connection to themselves and really know how everything is connected, how everything is interconnected, how it all works as one system. And to be able to know that in such an expert way, so that it doesn't take until there's all of these pieces of the wheels are falling off, and then it's about trying to repair everything.
Yeah.
And then we're kind of segmented in our care system, where it's like your ADD problem is over here, and then your business problem is over here. And so it's so important what you've done, because you've really put into the marketplace, like, again, it's a holistic approach. It's a holistic set of tools and perspectives and ideas that people can have.
Yeah. I forget the exact saying, but it's something like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, or something like that.
Cure.
Yeah,
Exactly. And it's interesting, as I've followed your trajectory, and I've stayed connected to it for a number of reasons. And one of them is because for years, as I was really clear that my purpose was in helping people with their emotional foundation and their emotional processing ability, so many people were telling me all the time, like, you must pick a lane, and you must be the addiction person or the anxiety person. And while I completely understood that from a marketing perspective, and where people could identify, like, I have anxiety, so that's my solution, I actually thought, along the way, that's part of the problem, is that things are being identified so individually. It keeps people identifying them as separate symptoms, rather than something going on in their system in general. And so a long time ago, you did that. You said, no, I'm going, from the foundation and the overview of things, rather than just picking a symptom and becoming the world's expert on one symptom or something like that.
Yeah. I think it's such a good point too. And I don't know if I really did that intentionally. It was just more of like it was more of what interests me. And, I had all these interests, and so I would cover that. But, it may perhaps more of an intuitive thing of just kind of feeling like that was more of the way that aligned with me, as opposed to being, a specific area. But it goes back to the approach, like the American Medical Association, the current standard of Western medicine. It's like, you have a specialist for this, you have a specialist for this, like they're all separated. And then you have all these people with these problems, and nobody can figure out how to really, like, there's no cures for diabetes, that they can actually officially say. There's no cures for cancer that they can officially say. They have these different protocols and treatments that help people in their symptoms, but there's nobody officially that goes beneath the surface, under the hood, so to speak, and hits the whole holistic approach of the body. When you heal the body up, just like your mind and all these things we're talking about, when you heal the actual core root of the problem, those problems, those symptoms of, say, whatever, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, you can go right down the line, every single one of them, they go away when you heal the core problem.
It is so amazing. And it's such a mindset shift for people because, even as I think about this foundational level that I feel it's the emotional level. But as you said, everything, the emotions are the body. Everything is one system. And yet so much more, I believe, is created by what we are experiencing emotionally. And like you said, there's toxins of all kinds, in our environment and in our upbringing. And all of that specialization and the way it makes people think about problems, I mean, that's just part of our cultural conditioning. And so for those of us, whether it was intuitive or just, it sounds like you did it because you felt it was what was needed. And probably, Justin, like me, it's because I felt it's what I would have needed.
Yeah.
And what I needed and wanted to keep exploring and developing for myself. And this is really big. I really want to invite the audience to keep recognizing that the level of the self, the emotional foundation, the mind, and all of these things that are creating all of these great outcomes in life, that's also what's creating lots of challenges within ourselves. And it's deeper than just the surface level symptom. And the last thing I'll say about that is that it's okay to recognize it as an emotional process going on, because the whole emotions get such a bad rap that people don't want to look at them. And that's why it's also so cool, Justin, that when you're helping people see that they can be an elite version of themselves, it kind of bypasses the fear that they're actually dealing with something pretty significantly deep and emotional.
Yeah. And I think there's just so much that people don't think they can do or they can achieve, or, they see all their friends that haven't been able to do something for X amount of years, and they think like that's their reality. That's what's going to happen to them. And I've seen it time and time again, personally, my own life and helping clients for years now. It's like, there's so much possibility for you to grow, change, overcome whatever issue it is, especially when we're talking about like mental health problems, traumas, anxieties, depression. Like, I'm not going to say, I would never say that those are easy problems to overcome, but the solution oftentimes can be. And if you do a certain thing for a certain period of time and really dive into those types of things that you have to do to overcome them, they can easily be overcome.
That is such an important point. And really, everybody take that in, because there's so much cultural conditioning around things being chronic, right? Yeah. If you have anxiety, I see people saying this actually on television shows a lot, like, well, I have anxiety, or I'm anxious and I'm going to have this my whole life and I'll have to deal with it. There's so much beliefs there's so many things that are being propagated about that if you have depression, you'll always have depression. If you've been addicted to something, that you will always be, and that somehow you have to constantly fix the same problem over and over again, rather than the reality is that when you focus on it, that you will move through it, and then you'll come to the next level of developing yourself, and that there's just such an expansive set of opportunities for people to be that elite version of themselves.
Yeah. And there's no one size fits all. And there's also not like just one solution or a couple. There's literally so many different solutions out there. I put, like, in the book I had, Elite Mind, I wrote a few months back, there's like 30 chapters in the book, and probably there's a couple other chapters that don't actually talk about like modalities and specifics. They're just kind of like a little bit of the backstory and some of the things I went through. But there's probably 20 different solutions for anxiety and depression in the book total, like completely different things. And this is just my book. There's dozens and dozens of other ones out there that actually work as well. So it's like, you don't need to, rely on, say, medication the rest of your life and think you have this chronic debilitating disease of mental health that you can never overcome. You do some real research out there and you start implementing some of these things, your life can literally change in weeks, if not months.
It really, really can. I really appreciate you saying that, because I feel like it seems like that our job as humans to keep becoming experts on the things that we're struggling with, rather than see it as this shameful thing, and we want to pretend it's not there. We want to have a facade, and it's all protective, and And because you know, unfortunately, it has, these things have been stigmatized, whether in your family system or, you know, in society. And it's like, those are the very things I feel like are the things that you're supposed to become an expert on, and then bring that into all that you do and grow whatever your next level of expertise is. But I wonder sometimes if it's like it's an issue where people don't correct these things till later, because learning about the self is not so prevalent early on, and then it can also, it's not sounding as cool to people as it's now finally becoming with things like you're doing in the world, where it's like, this is cool to grow myself, like it's amazing, and it's a whole different world now.
Yeah, it's honestly, here's the truth about a lot of things of what we're talking about too, is that it's a lot easier, it's more convenient, it's more comfortable to just think that, you know, say I keep like, I don't want to like be anti-medication, but I, you know, I kind of keep harping on it, but to say, you know, I'll just have my doctor prescribe me whatever it is that has to be prescribed and just rely on medication, and think in the back of your mind, I'm never really going to cure this, because even the doctor will say this isn't a cure. I'm never going to really overcome this, but at least I can be okay. Like, at least I'll survive. At least I'll, you know, I'll be somewhat happy on some days, and I'll have my down day. Like, they're living life almost like on the sidelines. They're not really going after the things they want. They're almost accepting defeat of, like, not like defeat like they're going to completely hate life, but defeat of like an average life. They're almost be like sitting on the sidelines and not going for the life that they really want.
And yeah, and it's literally, the way I see it is, it's a belief system, because things are always evolving. We have never been in a greater time in human history where there are more people aware and creating, you know, learning, gaining expertise, sharing expertise. We're on a different page from where, you know, if I take something like addiction, and there was a point in time where these doctors they couldn't figure it out. And so, you know, somebody came along and said, you know, this is incurable, this is chronic, so let's at least hang out together and focus on how we can be the best versions of ourselves with this struggle. And that has helped many, many, many people. And then things evolve, and the reality is, just because somebody couldn't figure something out 100 years ago, we're on a different page. And so the belief systems kind of get carried over, like anxiety is chronic, and autoimmune disorders are chronic, or addiction is chronic. And the reality is, so much is completely changeable and malleable. And it is about people like recognizing the belief systems in everything that are holding them back, and being exposed to so much great content in the world, including your book, The Elite Mind. And what I want to know, Justin, is, tell us a bit more about what we can expect in the book, and what, you know, what's in store.
Yeah, thanks. So the book it's a 4 parts, actually. The first part is my backstory of kind of what I told you a moment ago about the problems I faced at depression, anxiety. Second part is the anxiety part. Third part is the depression part. And then the fourth part is the confidence part of, like, once you get back to the baseline, once you get control of the anxiety, depression, you don't have 3 to 4 panic attacks a week. You actually, by going through like the stages of the book, hopefully at that point you understand and can start implementing some of the practices and techniques. And you sort of, I mean, many people, if you really dive into it, can be good with and done with panic attacks by the point of the confidence chapter, the section. And so once you're back down a baseline of like not having those issues completely control your mind, and you're, you know, racing thoughts and just can't focus, and you're depressed all the time. And once you get back to being in a baseline, like I mentioned before, it's like you want to take your life to the next level. And that's what the confidence section is all about, is really having the mindset now of like, all right, I've overcome these incredible things that many people in their lifetimes, unfortunately, will never overcome. And many people in their lifetimes will suffer from these things, and it'll bring their lives down, and they'll be, you know, unhappy most of their lives, and miserable and anxious oftentimes. And so once you get over that, you have a sense of like wanting more. You have a sense of like confidence now that in yourself, that you can overcome whatever comes your way in life. And with that confidence, it's all about like then harnessing that energy of like this new energy of wanting more, of wanting to do more, of believing more in yourself. And then, so there's different techniques of at the end of the book, the latter part of the book, of really harnessing that power that you have of confidence, and going out in the world and then creating the type of life that you want, and doing the type of things that you want to do. And so it's really about like pushing yourself at that point and taking things to the next level, which is really at that point what I like to call the elite mind, having that elite mind and mindset of, you know, being able to go out, do whatever you want, overcome those bumps in the roads, those hiccups that come along the way. You know, when you're overcoming depression and anxiety, anything else really, for anyone who's had those two problems, anything else that comes your way, it's really just like, it's almost easier at that point to like fight anything. And you're going to have these problems. You're going to have loss. You're going to have, you know, debts in the family. You're going to have relationships that fall apart. You're going to have jobs that you lose. Like those types of things are going to happen. You're going to have those bumps in the road. But once you've overcome this, you know, you can overcome those other things that come in life.
I feel the same way. When you're mastering your emotions and you're using your mind to create the outcomes that you want, it just creates a momentum all its own.
Yeah.
Right. It creates a cumulative effect. And I also, I think everything that we are learning, it's all conditioning ourselves. Like we would train and do a certain routine or a workout, you know, recognizing that your mind cannot just be a mind, but it can be an elite mind. Even that concept makes it so, right? It makes that much more possible for people than if it's sort of this concept of like, oh, you're addicted and you'll always be addicted. And you have to, you know, watch your back because you can't be trusted. And these things create those kinds of outcomes rather than having people in the world who are leading in these areas of health and well-being and performance that believe in people's excellence and how elite their mind can be. And so I really am excited to read the book. And remind me, is it out yet or is it coming out?
Yeah, it came out a few months back. I'll send you a copy.
Oh yeah, it did come out. I am remembering that. I would love that.
Cool.
I always want to make my mind more elite, and I want to, you know, I never want to stop growing. And that's my recommendation to everyone. And when I think about this trajectory, Justin, for you, let me know, you know, if you relate to being somebody who was emotionally sensitive from the time where you were younger, and was that something that developed later, or how was that for you?
I think I can relate to that big time. I've always had that, very emotionally sensitive, always aware of my surroundings, always aware of like what people were thinking, and always in my head of like how to be sort of a perfectionist, even at a young age. Like I always wanted to overachieve and be the best at things. And, you know, I think a lot of that shaped as in my formative years, like getting older, that shaped a lot of like the anxiety. It was always up here and always thinking about things and overthinking about things in my head, analyzing things. And so I think people like us, it sounds like you as well, who have that type of mind, like an analytical mind of, and, you know, always wanted to be the best, like overachieving type of mind, like pleasing others. For whatever reason, I think we're kind of ingrained with that in an early age from, say, our parents or whatever. But I think people like us, those are the types of people that tend to have anxiety more as we get older.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I really see this combination of people who are more emotionally sensitive, who have this much bigger intuitive capacity, that just are aware of more, feel more. And we all know that there's a range of that, right? We know people in families, they go through the same family system and one sibling feels, you know, has one outcome and the other siblings like that was like hell on earth, and the other siblings like, what are you talking about? And the capacity for feeling is what I think is this incredible gift, but it also comes with a really big responsibility. And if we don't have people kind of training us, and how would they become experts on it if they didn't have the training? Then we have so much emotion and it's so intense that we need to learn the ability of how to harness it into these outcomes. And so for those of us, I think that also this combination of sensitive but super driven, what I see is that that's a really also fortunate thing, even though it's got its own issues, because at least you're sensitive and not just like getting your ass kicked. At least your drive can carry you forward. But Justin, you make a very important point that drive that is helping you can also just become its own chronic issue. And this is why self-awareness and self-connection is so important, to be able to understand how you uniquely work and how to make that work best for you. Otherwise it could be really chaotic, you know?
Absolutely. I mentioned in the book too, it's like a superpower in a lot of ways of like, we have this gift, like not even necessarily just the anxious people, like the highly sensitive people, but also the depression people, which is kind of I mean, they're cousins, as you know, probably better than anyone. They're so intertwined and related. But the people who have those types of things and then they're able to overcome those types of things, they have that like extra ability I found in their brains. Their minds work a little bit differently. And once they're able to like get all that energy and harness it in the right way and figure out how to actually utilize it, it's like they have this extra ability to get things done and achieve and do things that they, always wanted to achieve, but not necessarily were able to because it was kind of hindering them and getting in the way. It's like they have this incredibly supercharged vehicle, but they don't know how to drive it. And once they figure out how to drive it, it's like, wow, road opens up for them.
I really agree with that. And that's like for everybody to understand, the thing that you are struggling with that seems like a struggle, when upon further investigation, I really feel like this is where people then, if they lean into it as like, okay, this is occurring and I'm going to become an expert on this for my own self, and then whatever I'm going to do with that, I feel like these are the expertises that we're all needing from each other. So if something is somebody's experience and then you grow yourself through it, then even if you don't want to go and teach everybody about their emotions or depression, there's something that you'll be doing with that you're bringing as a contribution. And so it's not these things that are just like happening and that we're victim to. There's a process going on to be understood. And then that ends up becoming this really fascinating thing about you that you understand in a way not everybody else gets. And we need that expertise from everybody.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like once you get past that, you realize just how much is really out there. And also how many other people are facing these types of things. Like I never knew back when I first started this and I was facing all these things, I thought there was something really wrong with me. And then it wasn't until like, years after where I realized just how common it is. Like anxiety affects, different studies, but approximately like 20% of the American population has anxiety. And same thing with depression. Like on the opposite side, it's like 20% of people are at any given time are facing depression. And I think the majority, like say 50% or so, 50-60% will at some point have depressive symptoms. And it's like, this is so you're almost like weird if you don't have this issue at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And therefore it's everybody's welcome to just acknowledge that to themselves, and acknowledge that in a way that does not need to be stigmatizing. And, I'm remembering right now just in a point in my life, I'm not quite sure what year it was, but I had recovered through a long time ago, through an eating disorder, which was part of the way my anxiety and reactivity manifested itself. Reactivity, sensitivity, reactivity, and then reactive eating and reactive dieting and all of this. And I remember sitting around a family table, like maybe the holidays or something. And it was just, I was so comfortable with myself at that point and my journey and what it brought me. I was talking about something and just saying, oh yeah, like when I had that eating disorder and whatever. And I could just, it was interesting. It was, the flow of conversation kept going, which was really nice. And it also was just an important moment to like, just being a person and talking about it. That's what we're actually here to do, and it just really liberated me to be able to say, I'm on a human journey and this is a part of it. And so that's the thing that actually makes us so connected to each other.
Yeah. And when you mention that too, like say you mention it at a family party or you mention it, I'm sure at other points in time, obviously you have a big following now and you're a public figure, but even if you're just a regular person, not in this sort of space, you're going to different places, you're going to different functions, parties, whatever, and you're coming across people and you mention this story and then they ask you about it. And it's like, you're not just helping yourself at that point. You're helping so many other people who can, you're helping, your cousin that was at the family party or your sister's friend or like everybody has these types of problems and they can relate. It's just like no one wants to really talk, or no one has been able to talk about them up until this point because there's such a stigma attached to it. But it's like the more you and I and people like us talk about it, even regular people that have overcome this issue talk about it, the more other people learn that they've overcome it so they can do it as well in their own lives. And it gives them a sort of strength to then go out and do it.
Well, and I really want this for the mental, emotional health, category of things, even though we know it's all one system, because people are perfectly comfortable saying things like, oh, I've got back pain. And then someone else is like, oh, I had back pain and here's what I did. And, it's a whole nother, it's a whole new opportunity to just have, have it be free game for anything that we're experiencing. And I always like to say, and here's what I'm working through right now. Here's what I'm working on, because then it has a nice active quality to it of what is happening. And so I really love this for everybody, to be able to put this into just take ownership of it, take ownership of your human experience, and then keep leaning into the things that can help you. And some of the things are, there's so many opportunities with great providers and leaders out there. And Justin, I know you do coaching. And so what should people know about the coaching that you do?
Well, the coaching is more just based on specific issues. Like you kind of mentioned earlier, like I tackle so many different problems that guys have, and whether it's confidence issues, they want to have more confidence at work or whatever, and confidence with women if they're trying to do some dating stuff, or if it's a more serious issue, say like, serious depression or anxiety. I cover across the board. It's really just a specific kind of plan of action for each guy that comes to me. And it's, some people a coach for a month, some people will be like a 6 months or even a year, where it's like more work that needs to be had and more support along the way. For something serious like a depression thing, and where it's like very bad, it's going to be a little more work and a little more support for that. But it's cool. I love getting the gambit of issues where people come to me and they're like, they've tried this, they've tried that, they haven't had success, they've been dealing with it for years. And it's like, at that point they come to me oftentimes and they don't know if they can overcome this, but it's like a last thing they want to try. And it's like, no, I know you can overcome this, and you're going to, it might be a month, it might be 3-6 months if it's something real serious, but you're going to overcome it if you do the work, and they do.
This is really important, because so many people feel like if it hasn't happened, that it won't. And that mindset is no bueno, because
yeah,
we can never, there's no giving up on ourselves, right? We do it until we figure it out, until we get it done, and we go to the next thing, and we keep doing that. That's one of the things that I think can be so challenging about being in these leadership roles, is that people can want the help, but then be in that belief system that because it hasn't happened yet, that it won't. And, I just encourage everybody to keep going and keep trying. And I think sometimes people will feel like, if this doesn't work, then, this is the last thing. And in reality, I just really would encourage everybody to just know that you're just going to keep going. You're going to try to make this be the best thing that has ever happened. And yet, if you need to do something else, you'll do it in the future, because that's the purpose here, to self-actualize, and again, become the most elite version of yourself, because that's for you, right? And the experience of that is well worth it, to be able to be living in your purpose and in your capacity and flow, and to be able to get to do all these fun things that Justin and I are getting to do. And then we call it a job, and we wink.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Because it's so much fun. And really everybody can have that experience. So Justin, just so I know, and so everybody knows, what are just some of the results that people can expect from following what you do, and, the coaching that you offer? What can they expect?
Honestly, they can expect to completely change their life as far as health goes, whether that's mental health, whether that's, and lately I've been doing a lot of coaching as far as like, because I have supplement companies. Well, you mentioned, I think in the beginning,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a lot of like nutritional help and dietary help and that type of health. So it's not just like the mindset stuff anymore, because it's all, like I mentioned before, it's all connected. Everything's connected. A lot of people have unknown problems with, say, their diet or their consumption of, say, minerals like magnesium or zinc. They're not consuming enough. That 80% of the American population is deficient in magnesium, one of the most important minerals for neurotransmitter balance, serotonin, GABA, etc. And so like you got to go across the board and really figure out what's going on and what these people are doing. And once you do that, though, it's like they're like, I hate when people say that they have chronic anxiety or chronic depression, or they're going to have it the rest of their lives. And it's like, no, once you figure out what's really behind these problems, oftentimes it's a combination of things, but you get your diet down, you get your supplements down, you're taking the right, key minerals and vitamins, and then you're doing the certain things that like you're supposed to do as far as like being present, as far as exercise goes. They've done studies where exercise is more effective than the best antidepressant medication out there. Regular exercise, routine exercise. Like, so you do these things, these basic things, and then you work on some of the problems of the past with mental blocks and things like that. I mean, all these problems that come to me, there's nothing that I honestly believe cannot be overcome. And I've had incredible, not every single person, because if they don't do the work, there's only so much I can do as a coach, but if they do the work, I guarantee that they see results. It's like, it's not like if it's going to work, it's just like when it's going to work, when these people actually do it, because, you know, there's, like I said, so many solutions out there, and I've figured out a number of like really good ones that actually have worked time and again.
I really love this, Justin, because years and years ago, when I was a corporate trainer, and I was, you know, I've always been in the area of helping people perform better, and it just evolved because I realized, you know, I'm in the corporate world, but I'm basically doing therapy all the time. So, but before that, having been sensitive and really experiencing life intensely as a younger person, you know, it did at a very young age. I had the eating disorder. I had at a young age also had an autoimmune disorder, but I didn't know it at the time. And so I just felt like crap. And so like by the age of 27, 28, somebody's recommending antidepressants and all of that. And I'm just going, I know that this is something else. I know that that will be a Band-Aid and it's something else. And I really like fought my way through doctors that were just saying, this all fits in the normal range. And I'm like, this doesn't feel good. And I'm a young person, and I'm not going to live like this. And through a process of getting like a full set of labs, like a really extensive set of labs, and really understanding all about what was going on in my body, which was also, by the way, being caused by my overly sensitive, you know, emotional process.
Yeah.
It was really very overwhelming for my body. And so being able to understand things, and something like magnesium is a perfect example where like that is crucial to stress management. And you know, people don't know that. And so after, and really understanding the physiology and recognizing this wonderful doctor that I worked with, he said to me, Tracy, we can get all these labs right, but if you don't change your relationship with yourself, because I was really very success driven, and if you don't change your relationship with yourself, these numbers won't stay that way. And so it really set me on a path to know that from the moment I was a psychologist, I'm like, I am not just working on somebody's mind or their psychology or their emotions or brain. We are working on everything about the person. And if you don't, and I know you get this, Justin, then everybody ends up having 17 providers for something, which is very overwhelming and expensive and time, you know, and really costly with your time. And so to know that you also are, and you are doing, you have the supplements. Justin has what you need, you guys. He's really got these things covered. And I think that's amazing that also, especially that men have this resource, Justin. This is phenomenal.
Yeah. Thanks. I do want to apologize for my dog in the background. I think he's hungry.
Oh, that's okay. I'm a dog mom. So it's all going on.
Border collie. They're special dogs. Great dogs.
I'm a wiener dog mom.
Oh, wow. I got to take him out in a minute or give him some food. But you make a really good point. I want to just mention real quick of the interconnectedness of, say, the problems of eating disorders or anxiety, depression. It's not just, that's why we cover a holistic approach of looking at everything. It's not just an imbalance. Like, you know, a lot of doctors will have you believe you don't have enough serotonin, so they'll give you SSRIs, because that doesn't actually fix the root cause of it. The root cause of a lot of these problems oftentimes is like what you mentioned, being up here. And if you're having a lot of stress going on, a lot of cortisol release, a lot of adrenaline release, that actually wipes out the system, wipes out your adrenal glands, causes more stress, causes more inflammation on the brain. And once, you know, inflammation, you probably know, is directly related to depression and anxiety levels. Once that goes up in the brain, those things shoot up as well. And then, you know, your GABA levels go down, your serotonin levels go down. Like all those things are contributing. They're the result of being in your head and having these unresolved problems, these traumas, these issues, and that kind of repeats in a vicious cycle over and over again. So we can correct those things by having dietary and supplemental fixes and getting all those things right. But like you said, if that problem continues, it's just going to keep wiping itself out.
If you're still reacting, you know, even though, because sometimes people show up on consultations, gone to all the integrative doctors. They're on all the hormones and all the supplements. And I'm like, I'm so glad that they do have the regimen,
Mm-hmm.
but without really shifting their reactive processes. Exactly. The body just does what it's used to doing. And if you've been reacting since you were little, reacting through your life for a number of reasons, or you grew up with reactive people and you absorb that, an object in motion stays in motion. You'll just keep doing what you did until you grow a level of self-connection with yourself through all of these amazing tools that are available for people. When you start to know yourself, you start to really get all how everything's interrelated. And it's really exciting. And for me, I'm sure you feel this way, just it's the most interesting thing I can imagine, because you're getting to study about being a person, and what could be more relevant.
Yeah, I know, really. I just love this work. It's so fascinating to me. And I don't know if it's because I went through it personally, or if I've always just had an interest in like psychology and the brain and how it works and how our minds work. But it's just like everything. I'm so focused and interested in this kind of stuff. So I love doing it, even just to help other people, help myself, obviously, but it's just like an interest level of like, what is like piques my interest. It's really right at the top of things.
Well, Justin, this has been such a great service to our audience. This is so important. And I want to say, I know that there are so many incredible, emotionally sensitive men. And in this world, we don't necessarily honor that in males, especially when they're young and developing and when at any stage of the game. And there's a lot of flack that goes on around that, and shame. And the reality is that it's a beautiful thing to be emotionally sensitive, to be intuitive, and to step up and give those gifts, you know, to heal the way that you're talking about, Justin, to get your baseline as you're talking about it, and take it beyond and bring your emotionally sensitive self to the party, and have your best clothes on, which you can also find on Elite Man magazine with so many cool, awesome, sexy people on there. Thanks for the eye candy, Justin. And so we'll go ahead and wrap on that note. But I do want to ask you one final thing to leave us with, which is, Justin, if this were your last day on Earth, and this is the message that we were going to get from you, for all of us to carry on and have this in our repertoire, to take forward and build our best life, what would that message be?
I think the most important message I can leave is that any problem can be overcome across the boards. Anything that you're facing in life can be overcome, and you can beat it 100%. I believe that fully. Any medical condition, any mental condition, any problems that you're facing can be overcome. You just got to go and find the resources that'll help you do it. And there's so many out there for various things, some more than others, of course, but there are the resources out there. You just got to find them and then implement them, and you'll be all right.
Thank you. You guys heard it here. And I just invite all of you to take all of these emotional tools, everything that you've learned today, to know that you can shift from reacting. You can harness all of this emotion and energy and everything that you've learned through your trajectory to overcome, and you too can elevate your life. Thanks for being with us, and I'll see you soon.